Now welcome our keynote speaker, Vanita Gupta, class of 2001 and head of the Civil Rights Division, U.S. Department of Justice.
Good morning. Georgia, those were really moving words. Thank you so much. It's hard to go after you. I want to thank everyone for the welcome, Dean Morrison, Provost Fleming, Chairman Welters, the distinguished, amazing faculty, fellow alumni, and all the proud parents that are in the audience, and honored guests, and all of you overachieving graduates about to become overworked lawyers. Thank you for the honor to invite me to speak before you today at my most beloved alma mater. You know, I have to tell you, it's pretty intimidating for me to give remarks with all this distinguished faculty behind me. But it is especially nerve-wracking because my 4- and 7-year-old boys, Rohan and Chetan, are also in the audience today. And they don't usually come to accompany me to hear my speeches, but they really wanted to come this time. And I initially thought my boys were just hoping that if we took them to New York, they would get to see the musical Hamilton. And they are completely obsessed with Hamilton right now. They know the lyrics to every song. They've searched for and watched the most obscure Hamilton-related videos on YouTube. So when Chetan insisted on actually attending the commencement ceremony, I was really touched. He's never asked to say, like, I really want to come hear you speak, Mom. And I thought, well, he sincerely wanted to hear my speech. But I told him, look, it's a long ceremony. You don't need to sit through it. Don't worry about it. You can watch my remarks online later. And that's when Chetan balked and said, but Mom, I have to meet the Trevor Effin Morrison. It's true. Now, for those of you in the audience who don't have the faintest clue what I'm talking about and are wondering why the head of the Civil Rights Division is talking about what I just said, well, just Google Trevor Effin Morrison. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed by the way that the NYU law students have put their great talents to use. But I also will ask you, don't do that now. My ego is a little too fragile to see a bunch of bowed heads with lights bowing down over their phones. So do that afterwards. So I'm going to confess that I remember about 2 words from my law school commencement about 15 years ago, and those were Vanita and Gupta, as I was being called to the stage to get hooded for the ceremony. And I'm not sure I even quite remember who hooded, is that even a word, who hooded me, or who did the hooding ceremony? So I've got a low bar, and all I'm asking you to do today is just remember a few extra words besides your names as you leave today. I am, though, really so incredibly honored to speak here. And when I came to the law school in the fall of 1998, I really had no idea what to expect. As someone who has no lawyers in her family, I spent my first year trying hard to understand the foreign language of the law. I pored over outlines, and I was deeply insecure that my fellow students understood the complex legal concepts that I just wasn't grasping. But I had professors like Kim Taylor Thompson and Derek Bell who refused to let me believe that I wasn't cut out for law school and told me to keep the faith. And then I met Randy Hertz in my second year. And I discovered my community in the clinics and at the Review of Law and Social Change. And the friends that I made in both of those NYU institutions really are with me in my life today, these many years on. And I eventually found my voice. I eventually found my calling and my tribe, and I love this law school for it. It was an honor then that for several years later I was invited to teach a civil rights litigation clinic with Claudia Angelos, and it quickly became apparent to me that compared to the caliber of students that were in my clinic, I probably would not have gotten into this fine institution had I applied today, and that's all of you. Just 15 years ago, I sat in your seats, and I felt some mixture of excitement, of apprehension, of awe, emotions that may be familiar to some of you right now. And today you enter an energizing profession, a noble profession, a profession that at its best reflects the values of we the people. In America, we use the law and we turn to lawyers to translate values and ideals, among them equality, fairness, freedom, opportunity, into real protections for real people, for everyone in this country. But of course, and you all know this, that throughout our history, the law hasn't always lived up to those ideals. For centuries, the law justified what Dr. King called America's long night of racial injustice. Indeed, for centuries, through slavery and Jim Crow, the law codified discrimination and oppression. The law treated women, people of color, and poor people as second-class citizens at best. But the beauty of this country's story and the promise of America's legal framework is that we as a country and as a people can change. We can evolve imperfectly, yet unyieldingly, when individuals stand up and speak out to ensure that our legal system brings our nation closer to its most cherished ideals. You may have read about these people in casebooks or heard about them in lectures at NYU, but these people do not fall from the sky. These people are we, these people are you. Today, from LGBTI rights to criminal justice reform, on problems that were once viewed as intractable, issues that were once viewed as untouchable, and progress once viewed as unimaginable at this profession's most proud moments, even in a profession that is predicated on precedent and preservation of the status quo, lawyers continue to envision a different path and to take risks on behalf of courageous men and women determined to shape our country into a more just union. Despite the tireless efforts of so many to drive this progress, including efforts from my outstanding colleagues at the Justice Department, in too many communities across America today, we see a dramatic gap between what our laws guarantee on the one hand and what people experience on the other. We see this gap in our elections as too many voters face too many hurdles to truly engaging in the democratic process. We see this gap in a justice system that too often ends up criminalizing poverty and disability. We see this gap even a half century after Gideon versus Wainwright, as too many poor defendants do not have meaningful access to counsel. We see this gap 62 years after Brown versus Board of Education, when children continue to attend deeply racially segregated schools and live in racially isolated neighborhoods. We see this gap as communities struggle to build trust with law enforcement and confront issues around the use of force, racial justice, officer safety, public safety. And we see this gap in efforts to deny LGBTI individuals, especially transgender men and women today, the respect that they deserve and the protection that our laws guarantee. And let me add this, efforts like House Bill 2 in North Carolina not only violate the laws that govern our nation, but also the values that define us as a people. Starting today, as you all enter the legal profession, our society is now going to look to you. We're going to count on you to close this gap. And as you embark on your journey, let me share just a few pieces of advice centered around 3 simple words. These are the words that I want you to remember when you can only remember 3 from the commencement ceremony. Courage, purpose, and kindness. Be courageous. No matter where you practice law, I promise you, you will have opportunities to lead with courage, to combat injustice, and to serve the public good. As lawyers, you're going to encounter moments and face decisions that test your character. Decisions about who to represent, about what argument to make, and about when to put your foot down. In a small town called Tulia, Texas, I learned this lesson firsthand, fresh out of law school, as a 26-year-old newly minted lawyer at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. The false testimony of a single police officer with a troubled history in law enforcement had sent dozens of African-American defendants to prison on low-level drug charges, with sentences ranging from 20 to 361 years. The day after the arrest, the local paper ran a headline, "Tulia streets cleared of garbage." I drove for hours on the flat highways of Texas, going from prison to prison, visiting my soon-to-be clients who generously overcame their initial shock at seeing someone who looked like they were 14 years old to allow me to be their lawyer. I met with my clients' families who displayed overwhelming courage in the face of daunting odds. I stayed up nights literally terrified that I was missing deadlines to file my clients' petitions in court so they could get a hearing. I had moments of panic that I was in over my head, and at times I was in over my head. Eventually, I assembled a team that included pro bono lawyers from some of the top law firms in the country, and we tried to leave no stone unturned. And 2 years later, in 2003, Governor Rick Perry pardoned my clients, finally setting them free. I'm telling you this story I'm telling you this story not just because it taught me about the strength of communities or the impact of the law or the power of lawyers. I'm telling you this story because it taught me about courage, about how the courage of my clients fueled my own resolve, even in the hardest times when I thought we would lose and never see justice. My advice, especially when the odds are stacked against you, especially when you feel most uncomfortable and at sea, trust and act your conscience. The most meaningful things that I have ever done in my life have never been easy. They have often made me feel very uncomfortable and sometimes even a little scared. History doesn't reward timidity. And even when other people in implicit, quiet ways will tell you to know your place, do not stay silent. And fellow women graduates, I'm especially talking to you here. This profession needs you, and don't let anyone make you believe anything else. Remember, though, that translating courage into real change requires more than just idealism. Maintaining uncompromised purity of your position may make you feel good at night, but it's not going to make change. Change requires rolling up your sleeves, thinking strategically, listening to people you don't agree with, crafting a path to justice, and having the courage to stand up and speak up when everyone else is staying silent. My second piece of advice: find your purpose. I promise it will make your career more fulfilling. For me, I found my driving purpose in my family's own story. Roughly a half-century ago, the promise of American opportunity led my amazing parents to emigrate from India in search of greater opportunity for their children. The promise of American equality led my sister to come out as gay and see that in this country you can love whomever you choose and feel safe and supported. The promise of American protection led my husband and his family to flee violence in Vietnam and seek refuge here in the United States. And these promises that our laws and Constitution guarantee continue to drive me every day that I work at the Department of Justice, with my men and women who strive tirelessly to ensure the protection and advancement of civil rights for everyone in this country. And I hope that each of you will find a true purpose, a real meaning, and a unique story that's going to drive you, because every one of you has it. Don't worry about not having a long-term plan. I promise you I didn't. I didn't plot my career. I didn't have the 5-year plan and the 10-year plan. I took jobs where I thought the work was going to be the most meaningful and impactful, and where I could surround myself with colleagues that I really admired. And trust me, once you find the thing that gets you up in the morning, not just for the closing argument on the day of a big trial, but just for the average Monday in the office, it's going to make the work that you do immensely valuable to society and deeply fulfilling in your own life. And lastly, as you find courage and purpose in this profession, remember to treat people with kindness and compassion. That starts with the people who are closest to you in your life, your friends, your family, your clients, whoever it is that matters to you most. In all honesty, as a mother of 2 young boys and with a husband who does so much day in and day out to support me, I still struggle every day with the work-life balance. It isn't easy, and you need to glance up from your screens every now and then to actually look people in the eye. But at the end of the day, people, not places or position, are going to make your work meaningful and your life enjoyable. And people are really going to define the depth of your happiness. So if and when you choose a life partner, choose wisely, as I did with Chin. It may even be the most important decision you make for your career. As a mother of young children, I just couldn't do this job without his support and his partnership and his humor. And in both my family, my personal family and my family at the Department of Justice, we solve problems as a team. We work together through crises. We support each other, we learn from each other, and we have fun while we do it. Whether interacting with your coworkers, your clients, your opposing counsel, treat people with respect. This might seem like it goes against the grain of what it means to be a hardcore aggressive advocate, but really being zealous doesn't mean being uncivil. Trust me, being strategic and focused while also treating people well is the best way to drive real success and demonstrate real leadership. Class of 2016, if you lead with courage, if you work with purpose, if you act with kindness, I know that you're going to change this profession and our country for the better. So go out and use the law to make the ideal of justice a reality for all. And just to make sure my kids are still listening, don't throw away your shot. We need you. We're counting on you. And individuals and communities all over the country are relying on you to make some big change, to make some waves, and to do some real good in this world. So congratulations, and I wish you all the very best of luck.